this is who I am, this is my passport, blah, blah, blah. And then you go to the interview. And it's basically just a bunch of like booths, but it's open and you've got a wall of them. So I can hear every interview that's happening.
Oh.
Which feels like a massive breach of like privacy and information and all these things. Not my embassy, not my problem, but it was wild.
Before we get started with our episode, we need to hear from our sponsor. And this year, I'm treating myself to the luxury upgrades that I deserve with Quince's high-quality travel essentials at fair prices. For example, European lightweight styles from $30, washable silk tops, and even comfortable lounge sets. By partnering directly with top factories, Quince cuts out the middleman and passes the savings right on to us. So, for your next trip, treat yourself with the luxe upgrades that you deserve with Quince. Go to quince.com/Rebecca for 365-day returns and free shipping on your order. That's QUINCE.com/Rebecca to get free shipping plus 365-day returns. Quince.com/Rebecca. Now let's get started with this week's episode. I don't even know where to start, to be completely honest. I never do though, and that's okay. That's so me. This is so us. It's fine.
It's fine. We roll with it.
Do you say your last name online? If not, then I won't say it.
Yeah, no, my last name is online.
Okay.
I was just gonna think, is it? I was like, yeah, no, it's in the credit of every single video we publish.
Do people ever tell you remind them of the guy from Meet the Robinsons?
I've been told I remind people of a lot of people. I have one of those faces where people would just go, oh, you look like a guy I knew in high school, or you look like this celebrity kind of maybe, and I'm like, I guess, sure.
I love that
like,
so
I just have the generic white guy face that just kind of fits wherever you need it to fit in your memory.
With the generic white guy accent.
Exactly.
For sure.
The generic,
the OG
original white
guy accent. Yeah. So as if people couldn't tell, Tom's not from here. Crazy. In case it's
What do you mean? What do you mean I'm not from here?
What do you mean? So I have so many questions, but first I want to get to how you came to America, because which was it's been a roller coaster. So you're the new Game Theory host.
Yes.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So I took over from Matt a year ago. Literally a year ago, 2 weeks ago, I think was the year ago mark. Yeah. So been working for Matt and for Theorist for 3.5 years. 4.5 years technically. It's complicated. We'll get into it with the whole visa story in general.
Okay.
But took over from Game Theory just over a year ago. But I only got here 2 months ago. So
officially.
It's about 10 weeks ago, something like that.
So you have a visa, not a green card.
Yes, I'm on the L1A visa.
So what is the difference? There's so many Americans that genuinely don't know the answer to this question. What is the difference between a visa and a green card?
So a green card is a permanent right to work and live in the US without strictly having a work sponsor or someone basically paying for you to be in the country.
Okay.
So whereas a visa, so my visa is a work visa where the company is essentially sponsoring me to be here.
Right.
And so we paid a bunch of fees up front. Every time we have to renew, we have to pay another bunch of more fees. And my status being in the US is entirely reliant on me having this job. If for whatever reason I got fired or the entire company went bust or any sort of bad situation like that, which isn't happening,
so
we're good.
Follow Game Theory.
Follow us, because otherwise we're in trouble.
We need Tom to stay here.
We're fine.
He brought my new best friend, aka his wife, and I can't lose her.
Exactly. It's not about me, really, let's be honest.
Yes.
But it's that thing of, if something were to happen, I then basically have I think it's a couple months, 60 days essentially to get out of the country.
Wow.
So that, and different visas have different stretches of time. Some of them have different requirements. Some of them are based on being a celebrity. Some of them you can just pay your way in. If you pay I think it's $900,000, you can just buy your way into the country.
Wow.
So essentially, I think you have to invest it in business technically. I don't think it's actually buying your way in, but kind of. And then there's a bunch of different work visas. Some of them are lottery based. We actually went for one of the lottery based visas, which was H1 or H1B, something like that. Where basically they pull a bunch of names out of a hat and decide, and you get the visa this time. And there is
Wow.
no set priority on that. So if I could go for that visa 10 times and have the same chances as I did the very first time I went in. It's not like, oh, because I've been applying multiple times, I get a higher chance.
Yeah.
Doesn't work like that. It's just random, luck of the draw. So we did that, and I didn't get it. Whereas the visa I'm now on, the L1A, is a management visa. So because of my position at the company, and because I manage a bunch of people, a bunch of writers and thumbnail artists and editors and team members, we basically argued that my senior position at the company is vital to the running
To the
of
production,
to the
yeah.
production and the running of said company.
Right.
And that was then what allowed me to finally sort of cross the border.
Wow. And so in total, and like I obviously want to talk about like how this all started
course.
and things like that. How long for you got here like 2 months ago? That's
Yeah.
when it was approved.
Yep.
How long did it take for you to get that approval?
So
Just for a visa. This isn't even for a green card.
yeah.
or
No, the
citizenship
green
or
card's a
anything.
whole other ball game. No, for just the visa, I'm just trying to think because there are kind of like 3 answers.
Okay. Okay.
And the reason for that, so the reasons are, the first was when we decided we wanted to move.
Uh-huh.
So like that was actually again almost 3 years ago to the day, pretty
Wow.
much. Of we came here for a month to trial it. I'd been working for Theorist full time for 6 months, and I was like, "Is this an option we want to pursue?" And we kind of came here and were like, "Yeah, this is where we want to be." And so that was 3 years ago.
Wow.
It was then about another half a year-ish, maybe less, like 3 months, 4 months, where Matt and Steph actually were in London for several months. And so it was at that point we then spoke to Matt and Steph because we didn't want to do it over voice chat or whatever.
Yeah.
And we wanted to make sure we weren't just like in the hype of being in the country and this is exciting.
Right.
We sat on it. They then came to the country and were like, we want to pursue this. And they were like, yes. So that was 4 months then. And then we sold the company, or Matt and Steph sold Theorist to LunarX. And so that slowed down a bunch of the processes because I then had to be transferred from an American contractor status, a UK contractor to the US, to a UK employee with our parent company.
Okay. Okay.
And so then I had to be with the company for a year before we could actually submit
Wow.
and apply. Now, so we were doing paperwork for like a year
Yeah.
in that build up, going, right, what do we need? What can we gather? What evidence can we build over that year? But we officially submitted 1 year ago, I think was when we, essentially, and that one we actually got rejected for.
Really?
Yeah.
Did they say why?
Not enough evidence. And that was
Okay.
down to lawyers, that was down to the...
Not enough evidence that you were working for an American company?
No, not enough evidence that I was important enough to the company's production that I needed to be out
Okay.
here.
Okay.
There's a lot of like if, buts, maybes and like boxes you have to tick to get through. Like
Okay.
you have to basically prove that there is no person in the US that could do the job.
Oh, wow. I actually had no idea that was a thing.
Yeah, you have to basically, because they want you to hire an American citizen. So they don't,
Yeah.
why can it not be an American
So in order
citizen?
for a company to be able to pull someone in from another country, not even as a citizen or a green card, like just as a temporary visa,
Mhm.
they have to prove
That you
there's
are more
no
than-
one else in the country.
Which sounds wild on paper, right?
Yeah,
It's like
that's
that's
hardcore.
impossible. It's one of those things where there is enough to do it. You just have to. It's a complicated sort of a lot of arguments you kind of have to make, like the fact that I'd been around for several years, that I was being trained by the parent company of a global company to purposefully grow the US market, but being trained by the UK company to help bring the brand over there. And so a US person wouldn't know that because they've not worked and been trained under the UK branch.
Right.
That sort of thing. So yeah, so you end up having to,
That's
prove
intense.
you're the only person. It's wild. It is really, really wild. And
At this time, you were not taking over Game Theory yet. You were working
no,
behind
so
the scenes.
yeah,
Okay.
I was behind the scenes. I was just the creative director. I said just the creative director, but I was the creative director of
Mm-hmm.
Game Theory. It was at the point where we were aware things were shifting, but we didn't actually know. And then slowly, as the year went on,
that Matt was going to take a step back.
yeah, we
Okay.
then got clued into that, months before obviously we announced it, and so that all kind of happened. But yeah, so that was March 2024 we submitted and got rejected
Wow.
for the
Okay.
visa. We then spent another like, when did we submit? What would that have been? When was that? My wife is off camera, so I'm just like, yeah.
The Queen.
So October, we then resubmitted
Okay.
again, and got approved for that in December. Yes, because we then moved in January. So we were approved before Christmas, right? Yes. Yeah. So we basically we resubmitted in October and got approved, but just before Christmas, essentially, to have the visa. So the actual, once we submitted and had all the correct documentation and like had better lawyers, it took like 2 months.
How much? Okay, I
So
know.
so that's why I'm saying like, oh, it's been a 3-year process.
But still, like getting
But
the information that you need.
the actual submission portion was only like 2 months. But then it was all the build up and all the paperwork and the failing
And
applications
legal fees.
and all the legal fees.
How much did all of this cost? Like the process?
So I know that one application. So LunarX was incredibly generous and very much said, well, like, we recognize how important this is, especially then with the changes that then came.
Right, of you taking over the
Because when this
channel.
was all initially talked about, this wasn't the plan, I don't know how clued in they were to the plan.
Right.
So I didn't know.
Yeah. You didn't know that you were gonna have your face plastered all over YouTube.
Exactly. So you're sitting there going, well, like, but they were like, we recognize this is important, so we're going to cover all your fees. So I didn't pay a cent towards that. They, as the company, did that. But I'm aware there was discussion initially, again, because the position was going to be different.
Right.
We were going to split it half and half because we get to move and there's a whole personal aspect to moving here, not just a work thing. So it was going to cost about, for one visa application, it was going to cost about $8,000.
Wow.
So probably about 16 grand.
And that's just like the application stuff?
That's just the application. That's not the lawyers, I don't believe.
Wow.
That's literally, again, this is my understanding, so take this with a slight grain of salt. The benefit is, at Luna, we have a very good lawyer.
No, but
they deal with all of this, and I was just like,
the regular people like who aren't fortunate enough to have like YouTube companies paying for them to get a visa, like this is really unattainable for a lot of people.
It's one of these things. It's why, like, you either have to have very wealthy family who can support you, or you're getting it through a job, because the companies that are offering them recognize the importance of foreign talent or whatever it is, and so put that money aside and know what it is. And again, like there's renewal costs. I don't know what those renewal costs are, because I've, again, not included into that conversation.
How long until you have to renew?
So the first on this visa, and again, every visa is totally different.
How many? Do you know how many different kinds there are?
Dozens.
Oh god.
Dozens.
Okay.
Like, you can go onto the website, because there's also like 3 kinds of L visa, and then you've got like A through Z or whatever it is, like A through M. So my wife is like on an L2 visa.
Okay.
Which is just like a companion visa to the L1A, but there's also the L1B visa, and there's an L2 additional thing, and so there's like subsections of subsections of subsections.
Wow. Okay.
So it all really depends. So my particular visa, the L1A, is initially 3 years.
Okay.
You can renew twice for 2 years each, so 7 years total.
Okay. So then, what happens at the end of that 7 years?
You go home.
Oh.
Or like technically, if all you've got is the visa, if you finish at the end, you're done and you go home.
But like, what if you keep the job? Like, you're not just keeping a job for 7 years.
But this is the thing.
Okay.
Because again, it depends on the kinds of visa. Because this visa is considered a temporary work visa. The idea is that you're only in the country to do the job, to set up the company as it needs to be set up, and then you get out.
Oh.
Like, basically, it's like, and there are different work visas that handle things in different ways. But yeah, the kind of premise behind this, because it was a question I was asked, it was like, how long do you intend to be in the country for?
Right.
And it kind of becomes this thing of, yeah, I'm there to do a job to like set up the US branch of this company, or help the US branch of this company to prepare for a certain thing. And then once that I've done that and I've set up the company, I can leave, and I don't need to be here and costing the taxpayer or whatever it is. That's kind of how they see it. And that's because, again, like, YouTube and creator spaces and productions.
It's very new.
It's very new. It's very different. And like, this is the thing. We changed a lot of our language. Our initial like paperwork the lawyers were doing was all very YouTuber heavy, and we're like,
it wasn't being taken seriously.
They don't understand it. They don't know what
they
this
have no
means, or
idea.
don't understand how important that is to a company. So it's like, he is a manager, he is a supervisor, he is like listing all like the old school terms to try and like sell it. But therefore the idea of like, oh yeah, you're coming here to do a job as like the face of a channel, that doesn't mean anything for them.
Yeah, because then they're like, can't you just get on a camera somewhere else?
Well,
they don't. Well, start from the beginning, because I think that like
yeah.
because I'll be so I always laugh when I think about how we first met.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I've never like been one that watches a lot of content. I don't know.
That's fair.
I've never been that person. My brother, complete opposite. My brother, like, I honestly didn't even think to ask him. I don't know why I haven't, but like, my brother grew up watching YouTubers.
Yeah.
I didn't. Like, I got here very accidentally. I never intended for any of this. So like, I'm on the way back from VidCon in June.
Yeah.
And like, I'm with my mom, and I have like this giant, I'm waiting for this giant suitcase that neither me or my mom should have been able to safely like get off the little luggage thing safely. Yep. And I'm wearing my VidCon jacket, and Tom just comes up to me and is like, "Yay, you just came from VidCon." And I'm like, "We're gonna take a quick break so we can hear from our sponsor." And this year, I'm treating myself to the luxury upgrades that I deserve with Quince's high-quality travel essentials at fair prices. For example, European lightweight styles from $30, washable silk tops, and even comfortable lounge sets. You guys know how I feel about comfortable clothes. Their comfy sets are my go-to when I have to catch a plane to record for this podcast. By partnering directly with top factories, Quince cuts out the middleman and passes the savings right on to us. And so important, Quince only works with factories that uses safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices. And premium fabrics and finishes, which I love. So for your next trip, treat yourself with the luxe upgrades that you deserve with Quince. Go to quince.com/Rebecca for 365-day returns and free shipping on your order. That's QUINCE.com/Rebecca to get free shipping plus 365-day returns. Quince.com/Rebecca. Now, back to the episode. I'm not gonna lie, in that moment I was like,
I knew exactly the look on your face, and I knew exactly how it came across as well, because I was like, "Oh, are you Miss Rogers?" And it was that thing of like, because I didn't actually know your first name either. I was like, I only knew you by the handle. So I was like, this is going to come off absolutely as a fan approaching. And she's just had a long flight. I think the funny thing is I'd actually clocked you as I walked on the plane.
In my jacket.
Yeah, in your jacket. Yeah. You were sat in your seat, and I think I clocked you, and I was like, I can't stop now and say hi. That's awkward. And I was just like, oh, it is what it is. And then I saw you waiting at the same baggage claim. I was like, oh, I can't not say hello.
Yes.
I have to come say hello.
Yes.
So that was my first VidCon as well, first ever VidCon, but obviously first one as host of the channels now.
Yes.
And so it was also a thing of like VidCon as in general.
It's very exhausting.
It's exhausting, but it was very much for me a networking event.
Yes, So for people that don't know, VidCon is like a giant content creator convention, and there's like the part where fans get to like, go see their favorite content creators, but there's also a huge networking thing on like behind closed doors for content creators. It's so exhausting.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. And so when Tom introduced it, he's like, "Oh, I was at VidCon," and I got so excited because I love finding local creators and finding local like building local community and things like that. And he was like, "Oh yeah, I'm the new host for Game Theory," and I was like, "That's cool." I don't. Cool. Yeah, sounds awesome.
It's one of those things like through that.
Sounds great.
Again, I'd only been hosting about 3 months when we did VidCon, something like that, and so like 3-4 months, and so there was a lot of like, and also like Tom and all of us have quite normal names, and so you just like, whereas Matt would introduce and go, "I'm Matt Pat." And everyone go, and like, that's iconic. And so everyone, like, you don't even need to say the channel or anything, you just know.
Yeah.
who it is. Whereas I go, "Hi, I'm Tom." Everyone's like, "Okay."
Yeah.
You,
Hi,
like
Tom.
you're this generic white dude. Like, okay, cool. Like, what's that? And I went, "I'm the host of Game Theory," and then suddenly okay, because they'd heard about the transition or whatever, or at least like in your case, it at least switched it into, okay, this is a creator as opposed to like a fan coming and stopping you at the airport.
Well, I literally like it's so fun because I was gone for 2 weeks because
Yeah.
usually I extend my California trips because I just have like friends and I have so much podcasting stuff to do. And so I got home and all I could think was I'm so excited to get back home and get on Discord because like I play Discord with or play games on Discord with a bunch of my friends. And they like I love them because like they do not care about my job. Like it is like they troll me like no other. Like their whole thing is like it's our job to keep Rebecca humble, and I'm like you do so good at that. But so like I was like, oh, I think I met a new content friend at the airport, and I just remember they were like, oh, his name's Tom. He's a part of this channel. I think he said it was Game Theory, and then it just got quiet. Because like these guys have been like doing video game things their whole lives. And all of a sudden, AJ just goes, "Did you just say Game Theory?" And I said, "Yeah." And I just remember Blaze goes, "Wait, is that the one with Matt Pat?" And I was like, "Oh, that sounds familiar. I don't know, but it's Tom now." And they just go, "I hate you so much." And I was like, "Oh, is that?" I was like, "Maybe I should like look them up." I don't know. And I was like, "Oh, this is like a really, oh, okay." Cool, I made a friend.
There you go.
But like I've never been someone where like that stuff like matters to me. But
No.
it's more like, oh, that's good for them, man, and they're good people. That's a win for me.
That's always
a win.
That's
So
always
like
a win.
I always laugh, and I want you to start from the beginning because knowing like whenever I think of like my general audience, I know one of my best friend Lauren, we've been best friends for like 15 years.
Yeah.
I think of like her as like my stereotypical viewer because I just know she listens to everyone, and she also would be like, "Game sounds cool. I don't know, it sounds good to me." So like Game Theory,
Yes.
giant YouTube channel.
Yes.
How many subs do they have? Do you know?
Yeah, it's like 19.7 million.
That's a lot. That's a lot. That's a lot of people.
It's a lot.
So how did you start even like working with them?
How did I start working with Game Theory? So before that, I worked for Fox and Disney as a producer of promotional content.
Did you ever work with Dan by any chance?
Dan,
Havemeyer?
I didn't know.
I
We
love that
sadly in
man.
the UK we didn't have a lot. We like stuff like that, working with those sorts of high tier people in the
love
company. They like the Americans all dealt with them, and we
No, that makes sense.
and we got the scraps of kind of what was left, or like anything they didn't want to use, or anything they were like, "You're just going to use our thing and just redub it in British." So sadly, like obviously
Dub
we worked
it in British.
genuinely, but it's like obviously we would get like we worked with the shows and stuff like that, but it was never like directly with Dan, sadly. But yeah, so I worked with them. Then COVID happened, but then we lost our jobs because they made Disney Plus, and that pissed off the wrong people.
Okay, so what did you do, and how did Disney Plus take your job?
So
That's actually so
they
interesting.
took our jobs. That's all I can think of when people say.
Taking our
But they so what it was. So I worked for the on-air department. So I worked for the department that was making promotional material for broadcasters.
Okay.
So there's a company called Sky. There's also BT and Virgin that basically are broadcast networks that you can pay them like a monthly fee for cable essentially, and the Disney channels were on those cable networks. And so you would be paying for their cable network and you'd get Disney thrown in. Sky, the big one, with like the UK's biggest one, has had its own streaming service called Now TV. So when Disney Plus happened, they were like, "You're making a competitor to us. Get off our airwaves. You're done. We're just severing that contract. You're due for renewal, so we're just cutting the contract. You're done."
Wow.
And then BT and Virgin also turned around and went, "We don't want that smoke. If Sky don't want you, we don't want you."
Okay.
Because we don't want to piss them off anymore.
Yeah.
And so they went, "Well, now that we're just going to put all our money into Disney Plus and we don't have on air we're not on air anymore, so we don't need an on air department. So all you disappear now." So that was fun. And then during that time, I knew it was coming. We knew it was coming for a few months. Like it wasn't a quick thing. And so during that time, I was like, I'm going to go freelance. I'm just going to do a bunch of stuff because no one was hiring in the middle of COVID.
Right.
Hard to get freelance work also because
Right.
you have to implement new people into your systems and whatever else. But
People have to know you exist.
exactly. But I was just like, this is the better option than trying to just be unemployed for however long.
Absolutely.
And it's like, and if something comes along, great, but I'll go freelance. During that time, early on, I went, right, I'm just going to start pulling the Hail Marys and start like just contacting a bunch of people that I either know and pulling on favors, or reaching out to people just on the off chance something happens. And one of those contacts, a few years before, I had managed to get in contact with, or through LinkedIn, had Matt's email address.
That's funny.
And so I reached out through that.
You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Oh, absolutely. And so therefore, I just did a cold reach out email to him and just said, hey, I've loved your stuff since 2011. I'd love to work for you, basically. Yeah. But that was like shot in the dark. I was like, there's no chance. Really, I was like, there's no chance this works. Like, I tried, because I think I'd actually tried a couple years before and heard nothing.
Wow.
So I was like, okay, this is a Hail Mary, but I'm desperate, like looking for work. I'm not sure what to do. So did that, and then 2 months later, I get an email from the head of production, Jason, going, hey, we like your resume. What is it you want to do?
Ooh.
Like,
okay.
Quite open-handed. Like, what is it you would like to do for us? I later learned he wanted me to say the words producer, because that's what he needed at the time, and that was my experience. But I turned around like an idiot and said, oh, I'd love to write for you.
Okay.
Like, because that had always been a dream. Being a writer was something I'd always loved doing, but no one had ever really given me the opportunity to do. And so I was like, I'd love to do that. And he went, okay, fine. And so Jason let me, and so they're like, right, we'll audition you, write us a script, like we'll go through the whole process. And I did that audition and passed. So that was great. That episode was Winnie the Pooh is Dying. It was a film theory, actually. Was my very first episode was a film theory. And it was basically on the idea that Winnie the Pooh cannot survive on honey alone. That's all he eats
That's so true.
in the show. And actually there but there's also not enough honey in the 100-acre wood to sustain him. Like, I looked at it from calories, going, the amount of calories he'd need to consume is this, because he's this kind of bear, they need this many, there's this much in honey. For him, there's not enough honey in the 100-acre wood to sustain him, and even if there was, he would probably die of diabetes.
Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I mean,
because it's all
welcome
sugar.
to Theorist. It's welcome to Theorist. It's all empty calories.
That's crazy.
So that was fun. Did that, and so that was basically the start of the journey. Then from there, I wrote one more theory on Captain Crunch and how he lost his he stolen valor because he didn't have enough stripes to be a captain on his naval uniform.
Oh.
He was like an admiral or something else. Like, it was like he was not the right rank. So
that always fascinating to me when people who are like in marketing don't do that kind of research.
Yeah, like he has since been promoted. He has since gained the stripes on his outfit. So I'm not saying our video was the reason, but
hey, you never.
Maybe. Then I disappeared for about 4 months.
Okay.
And didn't speak to Theorist for 4 months.
Why?
But yeah, it was so nothing anyone did. It was just a fact of...
You got busy.
I got busy. So I was writing for Theorist. I was also doing live camera directing, and I was doing camera operating for live and pre-records. I was editing a lot of stuff. I was also, doing live camera direction and graphics for live shows. So yeah, I was just doing a bunch of stuff for so many different people. And so... and there were some opportunities that were just paying a lot of money, and so I was just
the priorities,
when I'm
absolutely.
freelance, and we my wife had a job, so we were somewhat okay, but it was just that thing of like, we owned our place, we had a mortgage to pay, and all this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, I've got to just go where the money is. So I did, and then Christmas, New Year rolls around, and I was like, what's my New Year's resolution? I don't normally do them, but I was like, I really have this gut feeling that I want to make Theorist work, because I've loved it for so long. I really, really want to do more writing, really make this like a priority. even if the money's not quite as good as some of these other jobs that I'm doing. Like, it wasn't bad by any stretch, to be clear, but it was just one of those things. And so I had pitched an episode to them during my audition, and they said, no, that's insane.
Oh.
And not as in that's a bad idea. They said, we love the idea. We physically cannot ask you to do that in good faith.
Oh.
Because it would take too much time and effort for the amount of money we're paying you.
Right.
Essentially. Which was, what level is Ash Ketchum's Pikachu?
Oh.
And so and so what I did is I went, right, I've got to come back and impress them. And rather than like ask, hey, have you got any pitches that you want me to work on, or like pitching them some other things, I went, I know they want this. I got a bunch of free time, like between things. I'm just going to watch a bunch of it. And so I ended up watching 650 episodes of the anime and 13 movies, because the show was still going on. There's like 1,200, 1,300 episodes in reality. So I only got halfway through because there was like a specific point I could go, that's a good cutoff. I can cut there. But did that, and then basically showed up on their doorstep, essentially, and just went, hey, sorry I've been at AWOL for 4 months. Here's the outline for the script you wouldn't greenlight.
Oh my God, and they loved it.
They loved it. They turned it into they got me to write the script, turned it into 2 episodes. It was my first ever game theories. They were originally written as film theories, and they became game theories. So it was the first ever game theory I wrote. And after that, and I had spreadsheets and all these things, and so after that, they then invited me into the writers' meeting with all freelancers, but they were like, we want you in like the core meeting, just because we want you to be in the room where it happens, where like Matt is throwing out ideas and wants more pitches, or wants like, you've shown that you're clearly committed and you're good at this. So let's get you in.
And at this point, were you even like considering coming to the US at all? Like, it wasn't even on your brain?
That wasn't even on the radar. That was purely me just like, because I was just freelancing and I can do this work remotely, and I'm doing these other freelance jobs. So did like a handful of other scripts, I like on Doki Doki Literature Club and Lily's Garden, a few other law-based things. And suddenly I get an email from Jason going like, hey, I do this 6-month checkup with our freelancers just to kind of see how everyone's doing. I learned that's a complete lie. Anyway, later I learned that was completely not how he did things, but it was like, it was a good way to get people in without people feeling scared. So he got me in a meeting and was just like, where do you see yourself? Like, if you could continue working for us, like, where would you like to see that go? And basically was like, are you open to full time? I was like, yeah, 100% open to full time. And then like, in what capacity? It's like, is there other stuff you'd want to do outside of just writing? How about producing or doing more producing work, which is what I said he originally wanted. And obviously that was my background, so I was like, yeah, I could do that, easy. Like,
I feel like people hear the word producer and they're like, oh, I know what that is, but they don't actually like know what
again, it also varies in the place you are. So my producer job at Disney would be slightly different from like the producer on a film set. Because that was all promotional material. But basically the idea is you are the brains behind a lot of the operation. So you are the person organizing edits and scripts and writers and voiceover. Like, I was directing voiceovers in that particular job, but basically I would create the promo, and sometimes that was by myself, and other times that was by directing other people or organizing other people to get the job done. But the producer is the person who deals with a lot of the more organizational back end of a production. Sometimes that's finances, sometimes that's just, right, we need to have this many people here on this day and do this, and we're going to have this many camera ops, and they're going to be here, and we're like, it's the organizing part, whereas the director, for example, is the person making sure the cameras are pointing the right way, or is the creative of the field. The producer is then often the organizational administrative backbone of it. Grossly oversimplified, but that is so it's like, what about doing some of that for Theorist? And I was like, yeah, I'd be open to that. And so they said, right, we're actually considering a new role, which is creative director. Which requires a producer level of producing experience, but it is heavily focused on the writing aspect. And this is the thing. So like, I joked about it with Jason like later about the fact he's like, I wanted you to say producer, but if I'd done that, I'd just end up as a producer. But because I'd auditioned as a writer and proved I could do the creative and could write,
You got
they
this new.
they could marry the two and have like the best of both worlds, which was the setup for eventually Matt Lee. Again, the plan had been in motion for a long time.
Yeah, for Matt to take a back seat.
For Matt to take a back seat, and so this was like one of those starting blocks of going, we're getting a creative director in for one channel, we'll get them in for all the channels.
Okay.
And so I was kind of the first creative director. There's a bit of a grey area where there was someone who was leading Food Theory when that launched,
Okay.
but then they left like a month after I joined.
Okay.
And so for 6 months I was the only one there.
Okay.
Um,
So now you're full time.
and part of that discussion was, well, which channel do you want to be the creative director of?
Oh.
I was just like, at the time we only had 3. So Food Theory was kind of taken, again, was about to not be taken, but was taken. So it was film or game.
Okay.
And I wanted to say game, but I felt I couldn't.
Why?
Because in that sense of, again, being a fan of Matt, loving Matt and everything he'd been doing, it felt wrong to almost go, yeah, I want like your baby. That first, because it was the first one. It was the channel. It's the one where he especially was like the personality, the thing that he built everything around was this channel. So it felt like it did feel a little bit like, yeah, I want your firstborn son. Like, please, like that's what I would like out of this agreement.
Okay.
But then we talked for 30 minutes, and at the end of it, he then went, "This guy's got to be the game guy." And
I
so
love
he
that.
gave it to me. And it's what I wanted, so I'm so glad. And it's worked out so better because I would have sucked as the film theorist. Lee is so much better at that than I am.
love it.
Like, he is perfect for that role. So it's just like, it worked.
So now you're full time.
Now I'm
Is this when
full-time.
you started looking towards coming here?
Yes. So
Okay.
that was so 1 minute. So I freelanced. So that would have been in October of 2021. I
Okay.
went full time. And I had my like contract negotiations discussion really. Like the contract was great, so I didn't have to negotiate
Right.
particularly because Matt and Steph are just great like that. But it was we had that discussion and we were just talking. And they're like, "Hey, like we'll get you out to come visit and do stuff." And I went and they were very clear. There is no pressure for you to move. It was never like you do not need to move here. And I went, "But what if I did?
What if
though?
I thought about
What
it?
if I
Was
did?
that-
Then what?" And they were like, "We could explore that. Absolutely. We'd suggest you probably come out here for like an extended stay to kind of check that you like the place and that you want to
Yeah.
be here and that it works for you and all of that." And so 6 months later, well, before that we planned it, but 6 months later we ended up
Right.
doing the trip for a month out in Raleigh to work with the team, to meet the team. We went to LA to meet a bunch of the team out in LA, which was really, really good as well. People like Amy, the style theorist,
Yeah.
who wasn't the style theorist at the time. She was our brand manager. But like all of these people got to meet them for the first time. And so that was when we then made the decision, which then led to the 3 years to here.
Holy moly.
So yeah, starting at theorist and then like basically, yeah, as soon as I came on full time, it was kind of this is at least a consideration.
So while you were the production, the creative director,
Yes.
that's when the U.S. government was like, there's not enough evidence that you need to be here.
Yeah, so that was so what? Because we submitted in March. I had just taken over as host when we
Right.
submitted, and they said there's not enough evidence.
Okay.
And that was mostly an issue with lawyers.
Okay.
The particular lawyers we had used just weren't thorough enough or didn't supply enough. I think they took the approach of, because when you submit, there is a chance they come back to you and go, "We need more evidence." They don't say no immediately very often. It's normally a yes or a "we need more evidence." Problem is, a lot of the "we need more evidence" is actually a no, but they can't say no. And so this company, it felt like, had taken the approach of, we're going to submit as the minimum we can, really. And if that works, then great. And if not, we'll supply a bunch of more information. But
Okay.
the problem is, if you don't make that first hurdle, like, it doesn't matter that we submitted 200 pages for our for our more information.
Right. Oh,
They'd
that's
the
so
government
much.
had kind of made up its mind.
Right.
And so it just got rejected pretty much out of hand. The second time around, we went in with like 400 pages off the bat.
That's so much
Here's
work.
so much work. Stephanie did most of it.
Bless her heart.
Stephanie did most of it, along with our head of HR, Rachel, and then the lawyers we obviously hired as well. But like
Right.
Stephanie and Rachel worked their butts off.
And it's
for, like,
400
a
pages.
year.
What all does it include? Just everything that they need you for and how you need to be in the
Every
States?
email communication I've had that shows that I'm managing people
Okay.
is one
Wow.
aspect of that.
Just one. Okay, wow.
That is one aspect, but that you suddenly see how 400 pages happens.
Yes.
Every email going, hey, I would like this to be changed, or I'm making this decision to do here. Emails from other people going, hey, Tom, can I get your approval on this? Like, and me approving
Right.
it. Like, all of that level of communication has to be there. Like, all of my employment documentation, all of my, like, evidence that I work for the company, and I'm sure there's a bunch of people I don't even know that went
Right.
into that probably exists to
Yeah.
prove my point. But yeah, a lot of what I had, and then I obviously had to produce like marriage certificates because I'm
You
bringing
bring
a
your wife.
dependent. So it's then
Correct.
like,
my wife, but
right.
it's fine.
yeah, now your wife. That's how that was the
Thank
exchange
you,
I made
thank
with the
you.
government, was just like,
I will bring Rebecca Steffi.
exactly. That was the bribe we made under the table. No, it's but yeah, so it's a lot of like, I've got to supply all of that. I've got to, it's all my passport documentation. It's you know, any sort of criminal databases, it's bank statements, it's credit scores, it's all of these things that just go like, this is a totally stand-up citizen. He is not problematic in any way.
Right.
He's not going to cause you a problem, basically. And also he's going into a high-paying job, which you get to tax.
Yes.
So like we had to do like job offer letters and things like that to prove like what my new salary would be.
Wow.
And distinguish what my job in the UK versus the US would be, which was kind of somewhat arbitrary, or it felt arbitrary, but it's like we had to make very clear distinction of, now he's in the office, this is now what he's doing, and these are the new people he's going to be able to manage because he's local. And so you have to have org charts, the old org chart versus what the new org chart is going to be.
Wow.
And like I managed 2 people while I was in the UK on paper, because I was in the UK, I could only manage like local people. Suddenly I moved to the US and I'm managing like 10 people. And so
Wow.
it's like, it's those sorts of things of going, his managerial position is growing as a result of his move.
Wow. Okay.
So yeah.
And originally they still said no.
So that was the
Without the heavy 400-page document.
Yeah, so yeah, again, like it's hard. It kind of blends together. So apologies. Like,
No, that's okay.
The first time round, I don't think there was a lot of documentation submitted. I think
Okay.
we did. I think a lot of it was very basic and not very well thought through. And so some of this stuff was included, but
Okay,
not all
but
of
not
it.
all
And
of
that's
it.
when they
Okay.
rejected it, going, there's not enough information. And then the second time round in the October when we submitted, that's when we had the 400 pages with like everything and
Okay.
giving them no way to back
Yeah.
out. Basically, you cannot say no to this. We have done everything to the
Yeah.
T and then some.
So I know you said that like the actual visa itself is $8,000 a person. How much
Yes.
is it to apply for the visa?
Oh, again, this is where things get muddy. I don't know whether that $8,000 is included in that or
Oh,
not.
okay.
Like, a lot again, because as soon as we realized, oh, this is a harder process, and oh, Matt's going to hand over to this guy, we absolutely need him. Luna basically went, we're pulling you out of the process. Outside
We're
of-
just gonna do it.
We'll cover it and deal with
Okay.
it. So at that point, I basically got like no visibility into that, which was better for my sanity.
No,
than
for
constantly
sure,
being bugged for
absolutely.
stuff. Whereas before I was middlemaning, and it was a pain in the butt because the lawyers were coming to me. I then had to go to Stephanie. Stephanie would then tell me we can't do that. I then had to go to the lawyers, and it was just a lot of that. Whereas
Yeah.
then basically they decided, no, we're going to remove you from that. So I'm not entirely sure what that money was accounting for fully,
Yeah,
whether
okay.
it was just the application and or the visa. Because like I know we had to pay. It was about $90 for Stephanie's add-on visa.
Okay.
So the
okay.
actual physical visa was a $90 add-on for Stephanie.
Okay.
Mine would have been more, I'm sure, because it was the main visa. But I think like a lot of it is in the application process and like paying for the privilege of applying for a
Right, of
which
course.
you can then which you then get rejected from.
Right, exactly.
Sorry, my wife is also Stephanie.
Oh.
So yes, it's slightly confusing.
No, it's okay.
It's part of the job contract. If for the host of Game Theory, you have to marry a Stephanie. That's just the rule.
Understandable. That's why she has to say she's still married to you while
Yeah.
she's here with me.
There you go. Exactly. Yeah,
Understandable.
it's part of the contract. I'm
Because
sorry,
you would
guys.
have to leave.
Well, exactly. Exactly. I
I
couldn't
get
be
it.
the host of Game Theory anymore.
I-
Like that would be how that worked.
I'm willing to yield in that regard. It's fine. So Your visa is specifically you can only get it extended for up to 7 years.
Yes.
So then what then? Like, what are your options
what are the
after
options?
your visa, like, is not renewable
Yeah,
anymore?
so when it's basically if it gets to the point of being non-renewable, it's too late to do anything.
Oh,
Like,
okay.
really, at that point, you are going home, and you could then reapply for another
Okay.
visa. Like, one of the visas we considered, was the O visa, which is basically what is it called? Like aliens of extraordinary ability or something like that. It's what George Not Found, I think, came here on. But it's basically if you're like a celebrity or an expert in a field or something like that, you get this visa of just being like, yeah, this person is of extraordinary skill, and again will earn a lot of money for the country, which means you get to tax him. So please let them in. But you have to have like papers published about you. You have to be in you have to have like traditional media stuff covering you. So like, that's where you get people paying to be in Forbes 30 under 30. I'm now 30, so I can't do that anymore. But, paying to be 30 under 30 because suddenly, oh, well, look, here's a mainstream article about me. I'm important and famous.
Interesting.
That's evidence towards it. Like, now I've got a year's worth of videos of published material, because you also have to have stuff published. Your work has to be published. And it's like, well, here it is. It's been published. And like, I've been mentioned in a few articles because of MatPat's retirement. And so like, look, there I am in this article mentioned as a famous person kind of thing. And so we could then go for that, but I'd have to go home and apply. What you're really doing is whatever visa you're trying to switch to or any other option, you're doing it while you still have plenty of time on your visa.
What would you define as plenty of time?
I would probably do it like, you need to do it at least within your final cycle.
Okay, so like the last 2 years. You need those 2 years.
Because a visa can take anywhere from a year, like a process can take anywhere from a year to like 15, 16 months.
Wow.
So like, I could apply and it could still take 15 months approval.
Wow.
And so, there you go, we just beeped again. Sorry.
No, that's okay. No, I forgot to turn the sound on.
And so, yeah, so it can be 15 months to do that, which then means like you could be cutting it really fine if you leave it any later than basically as soon as you've renewed for that final 2 years.
That's crazy.
It takes a long time. So that's one option, is the O visa. The other option
and the O visa is like indefinite?
No. So that is also being sponsored by an employer. It is still technically associated with work, I believe, or with something, or you have to be able to pay your way, I think, or like have a proof of like enough income to pay. I'm not entirely, again, it's one of these ones we vaguely looked at and just looked at the initial requirements were like, he doesn't have it, so we can't do it. So it's something I'd look in. I know there are other YouTubers who have done the O visa because they've got published work and that sort of thing. So clearly people can do it without an employer. I'm just not sure quite how that works. The other option is the green card. That's where the green cards start to come in. And it's definitely an option I would want to consider. One, because it means if you can get it sooner rather than later, you don't have to do any more renewals because you do it once and you've got the green card.
Am I crazy? Did I ask you the difference between a visa and a green card?
You did, yes.
I don't remember. I ADHD'd myself. I don't remember if we talked about it or not.
You're totally fine. You're totally fine. Yeah, basically the green card is just a permanent right to remain with no attachment to an employer. You're good.
The Adderall's like not
kicking in today.
It's all gone. It's all worn off.
It's done.
I was like, because I know that I looked up all the terms so that I knew what I was talking about. I was like, do I know what this is because I asked him or because I looked it up?
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, you're totally good. And so it became so the green card would basically be a final like one-off set of cost and application to basically go, this guy needs to be here permanently.
Do you know how much a green card per person costs? No, I mean, it's still so early. You still got 7 years.
Exactly. I've only just got here and I'm kind of scared to look.
We got 5.
And I'm kind of scared to look.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if the temporary visa is $8,000, I cannot imagine. Actually, you know what? I'm going to look it up. I'm going to look it up right now. Hold on.
I'm also going to look up what the cost of the normal visa is to make sure I'm like, give it. Because I was like, I remember the number. I just couldn't remember if it was for application or what.
How much does a green card cost? Permanent residency, it typically ranges from $2,000 to $5,000 or more.
Yeah, or more is the key
or
there. Or more is how they get you. That's how they get you.
Holy moly. Okay.
And obviously lawyer fees on top of that.
So is there a reason that you went for visa instead of green card initially?
Just because we wouldn't have been able to. Like, green cards are very, very difficult to get off rip.
What makes them so difficult? Like, what's required for them?
Because you've got no sponsor in the country, you have
Okay.
to basically be able to, like, show that you're going to earn money with a US job. And again, like, but you've got no proof of any of that. It's like, because you're there basically just as a permanent resident, so you've
Right.
not earned the right to be there at all by the US government standards, and you've got no one sponsoring you. So if you go there and you're unemployed and like are homeless or have no income, you're just a burden on the government and on like the systems in place, and they don't want that. So they're like, we need you. So the reason visas work often is because you have someone sponsoring you. So someone else is essentially taking the responsibility for you, paying that cost, making sure that you have a job and you're earning money and being taxed and all those things. Whereas the green cards, like, they are doable, and I'm sure people do, and I'm sure if you have enough money and influence and power, you probably can.
Right.
But they are very difficult for normal people just to get off the bat. Normally,
yeah.
you go through visa to green card to
Citizenship.
That is the typical route.
And how crazy that it just so happens to like cost so much to apply for these things. That's
But
such
again,
a
I think
crazy
I'm
coincidence.
convinced, and this is purely conspiracy, like, I'm convinced it is to do with, like, basically they put all these things in your way as deterrents to stop people applying.
Okay.
So it's, the cost is super high because that will deter a bunch of people from applying. Oh, the process is super long and archaic. So that's
And you have
gonna,
to keep doing it to
so
renew and
that's
then
gonna-
reapply.
that's going to deter people. Oh, you have to submit 400 pages of documentation. And basically, it's like, by the time you've gotten through all of those and done it properly, they're like, you know what? You've earned it. You've actually put in the work. You've kind of earned this. Whereas before that, they're trying to stop as many people from applying as possible, because it's the less people that apply, the less burden it is on, the government to deal with.
Wow.
Because that office, the embassy in London, was packed. It was
Really?
so busy, and it's just, and obviously all different kinds of visas. Every visa under the sun was there trying to get their
No,
stuff
absolutely.
approved. So yeah, it was terrifying, but it was just very, very full, and you just go, yeah, and again, this is not the only embassy in the world. This is just the UK embassy,
Right.
Or
Correct.
just the London embassy, not even the UK
Wow.
embassy. So there's like one in each part of the UK,
Yeah.
and you just go. So naturally, they're trying to stop as many people as possible from
Wow.
getting through the system. And so, like, having those, for me, it's that idea of, having those deterrents stops people from going, oh, you know what, it's not worth it.
So so I know that so far we talked about the process, applying, doing the paperwork.
Yeah.
Once they're like, okay, this paperwork, good to go. Didn't you have like some in-person things you had to do too?
Yes, there was a lot of in-person things we had to do, actually, because we had the initial, so yeah, the paperwork gets submitted. We then get told,
Yay or nay.
Yeah, yay or nay. You've been essentially pre-approved.
Okay.
You haven't got the visa yet.
So just submitting all that is just to be pre-approved to go through the visa process.
They say, the language is vague at best, but
Okay.
it's essentially, from my experience doing it, it feels like it's more of a pre-approval.
Okay. Okay.
And different people have different different accounts of how this works. Some people then think, have the experience where the in-person part, because basically they then go, right, you now have to go to the embassy.
Right.
You need to go, you need to submit a bunch of your documents again to double check, one, that you've booked the appointment and then you are who you say you are,
Right.
and pay for like any extras or anything on top of that, and submit final details, do an interview, and then then hopefully you should walk away with your visa, or
Right.
with approval.
Okay.
Some people have the experience or have the belief that the in-person part is a formality,
Okay.
and you've basically been approved, you've won, you just need to show in person just to get it
Okay.
done. Others have the experience of, oh no, this is just the beginning, like
Oh.
which is where like the pre-approval idea comes from, because actually this whole part, you can still fail at the last hurdle in person very easily.
Okay.
Because of, it depends on how, and basically it all comes down to how detailed or hard the interview becomes
Okay.
in person.
What does the interview look like?
our interview looked nothing like what I read online.
Okay.
So again, there's also just not a lot of material out there to like tell you, by the way, this is what to expect. They
Okay.
do not tell you. They just go,
Interesting.
show up.
They want to see how you
They want to basically go, show up
react.
with this paperwork. We're not going to tell you anything else about like what to expect once you get there.
Okay.
So we got there. It was freezing and snowing
Oh.
outside when we were there. So we were queuing outside in the snow because there's no indoor queue because they have
Oh.
security you have to go through to get
Right.
indoors because it's the embassy.
Yeah, right.
And it's one of the few places you see people standing there with guns in London. It's very, very
That makes
weird.
sense.
Very weird. And so, yeah, you get through, you then do all the paperwork bits of like, yeah, this is who I am, this is my passport, blah, blah, blah. And then you go to the interview. And it's basically just a bunch of like booths, standing booths, open doors, like no door, open wall face, just like a glass cubicle, like you would at the DMV or like you would at sort of any government building here where you're like trying to get your recycling bins or your water sorted out. That's something I learned I had to do, and it was like same thing, just sort of a glass panel or a plastic panel, and then person sat in there going, you know, let me ask you some questions. But it's open, and you've got a wall of them. So I can hear every interview that's happening,
Oh.
which feels like a massive breach of like privacy and information and all these things. Not my embassy, not my problem, but it was wild. And so, yeah, we then just go and stand up. And again, in prep for this, I had memorized answers. I had like gone through my entire job description and memorized it. I'd memorized the name of every person I was managing and all the details of their employment and my employment and like what Steffi's role was going to be like in the home and what we were doing and like how I had to learn the difference in my job description in the UK versus the US, which is really hard because they're very similar.
Right.
You have to learn that. I had done so much prep. I get there. They ask me, what's your name? What's the name of the company? How long have you worked there? That's it.
Oh.
That is all I got asked. We then had a slight complication occur immediately after that, where, because again, you can walk away with approval and a visa at the end of that. Like, at the end of that, you go, yep, great, like, here it is, bam, or like, you know, just put it in. They basically were like, we can't, there's an issue going on and we can't do that.
Oh.
But they also didn't tell us we'd been approved.
Okay.
So they just went, sorry, we can't do anything more.
So you thought
Go
that you
away,
were like
like,
denied.
Well, and we will reach out, like you'll get an email about follow-up steps,
Okay.
about what's next,
Okay.
basically. So we had no idea.
Right.
We were like, is there an issue with the system because we've been rejected, because our paperwork had like flagged something, like something had been
Right.
flagged, but it took a while to get to that point. Like, what is happening? Then, and so yeah, we go away, and that's like the end of the in-person stuff, basically, is at that point. Couple weeks later, it was like the next day. That was it. No, it was the next day. Again, time frames, it was all a bit of a blur. The next day, we got an email basically going, send us your passports.
Oh.
Which sounds good because it's like, oh, well, they'll need our passports to put a visa in them. And
Right.
again, that was the thing they were meant to be able to do the day of.
Right.
And they did it. And so it's so annoying because it was just like, right, so I'm now sending this in the next day
Right.
to get it to you. And if you are putting a visa in my passports, that's now going to take like a week to get to you, get stamped, get back to me.
Right.
Why couldn't we have just done it the next day? Or like told me when I booked my appointment, actually, you need to book like a week later or whatever.
Right.
Like, whatever. But also in that email, there was no word like approved, visa, like it was just your visa visa application, nothing. It was just, you need to send us your passports, essentially.
Oh, I would have thought that was a scam.
Right, like admittedly it did come with all the proper like
Okay.
verbiage and like I had all of our like ID numbers and all of the stuff, all of
Okay.
that, so it was definitely legit. Obviously we're
It was
here,
just
but it was
weird,
just but there was
sketchy.
just no sense of like, you have been approved, please send us your passports.
Right.
Nothing. And so again, we then sat there for like a week or two, just like, did we get approved?
Okay.
What's happening? They've got our passports. Are they double checking something? Is this like, because again, it was all logic pointed to this is probably good. They're probably putting
Right.
this in. But because we've been rejected once before when we were told everything looked good, it's like, there's just that sense of,
Yeah,
like,
it's
I don't
like,
want to give
yeah.
up hope. I don't want to like put all my hopes on this and then it'd be dashed again.
Yes.
So I'm just gonna like play it cool and like not worry.
Of course.
Oh yeah, no, the dropping off the passports was also strange because like there's a very specific courier you have to use. Obviously, it's passports; it's very
Right,
sensitive
right.
information. But it very much was like hole in the wall. Like use the intercom, and then they go fill in the paperwork. Paperwork comes through like a slip. Fill it in. Drop it in the box. It's
Like,
just
oh,
it's
okay.
very very odd, but you know. But yeah, then like week or two goes by, and then the visa arrives. Like the passports arrive through the door, and I open them, and there's the visa. And that's the
Oh.
first I'd heard that we had gotten the visa.
Oh.
That's when I learned we had been approved and passed and were going to America. Was when
That's
the passport was
crazy.
in my hand with the visa in it.
That's so weird that they wouldn't like let you know just straight up. Like,
Right? So I think I do believe they let Stephanie, my employer, know
okay.
just before they arrived. So I think when they got, so I think because again it was all through work, their names and employment stuff, they were being looped into like a lot of the things that were being booked and happening because again it's that thing of going, if you're not approving this, this is us warning you so you can flag it and like tell us and all that sort of stuff. So what I think happened was once they got the passports on their end and then put the visa in and then sent it back, I think they received like the email going, the passports with the visas are being sent back. So Stephanie knew
Right.
before I did.
That's crazy.
And then she surprised me with a phone call saying, "Hey Tom, do you have a minute to just talk about like visa stuff?"
That's so scary.
And it was terrifying, and I was just like, "Oh no, no, no!" And I had just done my back in, so I was in a lot of pain. I was sitting at my desk just in a lot of pain. I wasn't in a good spot. And I under a bunk bed because I just moved it back in with my parents because we'd sold our place.
Right, and preparing to move.
So I was under a bunk bed at like a desk under a bunk bed. My back was in pain. Stephanie then goes like, "Oh, we need to just talk about next steps." I was like,
Oh God. How much longer of
I know.
this?
And then suddenly, yeah, she screamed like she goes like, "So right, we need to talk about this." And you've been approved, and like suddenly flips it on me, and everyone, the entire company's behind her, jumps up from under the camera, like waves flags.
Oh,
and does
that's
all
so
of
exciting.
that. That
That's
was
cute.
again, it's all blended together. That was actually part of the initial pre-approval before we did all the in-person stuff. She did all of that, which was very very sweet. But yeah, they were all getting told. So I think she told the entire office, but the entire office knew that
Before
I'd been
you
approved before I
did?
did. It's like, thanks for the heads up, guys. Appreciate that. But yeah, it was
That's
just
crazy.
it was a wild time, but it was the fact that the thing that annoyed me was one that they like the next day they were like, "Oh, we can now put it in your passport." It's like, why didn't you just
Why
do
didn't we
that
just do it the day before?
the day before, or why didn't you like delay whatever it needed to be so that we could do it on the
And
day?
they didn't
like
even like tell you what the problem was.
No,
were
they just said,
like, "Oh,
"There's
there's
a problem." That's it.
Oh, I hate that.
So there was that, and then it was also just frustrating that it's like I prepped all this time for like interview. I'm gonna nail this. Like I've got all these complex answers. I figured it out. I learned all like the key words, the buzzwords, like KPIs and ROIs and all
Yeah.
of that sort of business chat to like prove that I was a manager. And they asked me like, "How long have you been there? What's its name?" Great, thanks.
That's crazy.
Apparently, I have good fingerprints though. They you had to take your fingerprints or your biometrics,
Oh.
obviously, and apparently most of mine scored 4 or 5 out of 5 in terms of like
Oh.
how visible they are.
So don't commit a crime.
So don't commit a crime, but they really struggle to let you in if you have like less than 3,
Really?
because if you do commit a crime, they can't get you. They can't identify you
Because you don't have the.
because your fingerprints aren't strong enough.
Wow.
And like if you've got like 1, which is a problem, they're like, it's probably not a big deal. But if
But if
like
you have
if you
multiple-
it's like, have you burnt your fingerprints off perchance? Are you planning to commit crime? So yeah, like Steffi actually had better fingerprints than me. Hers were almost all 5s. But yeah, mine were like
Wow.
5s and 4s. So yeah, apparently I have good fingerprints. That's like one of the few weird facts I learned through the visa process.
What are some other weird little things that you like just learn through the process or
Oh,
whatever? That's interesting. Like the fingerprints thing. That's so
Yeah,
interesting.
that was probably the weird one that like, because again it's like I understood they have to take your biometrics and I have all that
Right,
on file.
absolutely.
I didn't realize they would be grading me.
Yeah.
Like it felt like being back in school going, "Oh gosh, what grade am I getting for fingerprints? Mum, please don't punish me for getting a bad score on my fingerprints."
If you're thinking about when I have one that someone sent me,
Oh.
Someone was trying to get a temporary visa, not a work visa, was trying to come see a concert in America. They
Yes,
live in
that kind of
India.
visa. Yeah.
They live in India. They were going to see a concert in Missouri. They didn't tell me what concert it was, but they had an aunt living in the States. They were just going to stay with their aunt. And so they filled out all the documentation, said that my aunt is going to be sponsoring me. I'm going to be staying with her. I'm just going for like this week to see my aunt and go to this concert, and then I'll be coming back. And they denied him.
Oh.
And they never really gave a reason, but he like later spoke to someone that just so happened to be an immigration attorney, and he's like, "Do you have any insight as to why they would have denied me?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, it's because you're a single male." And they're like, "What do you mean?" Well, typically people who are coming for temporary visas, if they're unmarried, they will say no, because it's the idea that like if you're married, you have a tie back to your home country, you're not going to stay here. But if you're single,
You might try and find someone so you can get permanent status.
exactly. And so like I didn't realize that typically people coming for temporary visas, if they're coming by themselves and they're unmarried, they're most likely going to get denied for that reason. I had no idea that was a thing.
Yeah, some of that will be down to certain country restrictions as well, like within that, because I have traveled to the US as a single man on on temporary visas for work or for various bits and bobs. I did some work in Florida in 2016, weirdly, very, very weird. But it's but I did some of that, and like like you have to fill in a bunch of stuff. But yeah, I was dating someone at the time, not fully single, but in the eyes of the law, that's kind of like, doesn't really matter. They're like, are you married or not? That's the key thing. Yeah, it's a strange thing, because that's normally how people, that's one of those examples where you can go straight to a green card, is if you marry someone who is a citizen. That allows you to skip the visa process, essentially.
Interesting.
And it depends on the visa, like you've got ESTAs. Oh, and again, different countries will have different ones, and the US will have different requirements. The UK, you have a thing called an ESTA. Which is like a temporary visa you pay for, essentially. It's just for visitors, and it lasts for 2 years, but you can only be in the country for 90 days at a time.
Wow.
And that's primarily what we would travel on before it became like a work thing. It was just you're just going, I'm visiting, and like when you get to the border, when you get to border control, they do interrogate you even on that, going, who are you staying with? How did you meet them? Why are you here? Like, how long are you here? All those sorts of things. Who do you work for back home? Those sorts of things. It is wild. It was funny walking in for the first time with the visa in hand, because it's a different page in my passport, and then I have like paper documents that go with it, essentially. And I got to the desk, and that's where they normally go, right, how long are you here for? What's the plan? And they just went, and I showed, but they go passport, so I gave them the visa page, and they went, and your I-797B or whatever the document is. Gave that to them. Great, thanks very much. And that was it. And I just got let in. And that was like, because again, it's all been pre-approved. So they're looking at it going, it's all legit. Off you go. But it was just very strange not being interrogated for the first time at the US border.
Wow. So I know I've asked you this before, like in passing, but I'm going to ask you this again. We've talked about this.
Yeah.
I asked you before if you like had plans to like gain citizenship and like move here, and you said you weren't sure.
Yes.
And I think that a lot of people just assume that everyone wants to move here and be a citizen. And I want.
Why wouldn't you? Greatest country in the world.
Exactly, right? And I really wanted to ask you about that, because I think that people like genuinely assume that, and just can't imagine or fathom someone not just, of course I want to move to the U.S. So I'm gonna let you talk. Before I start rambling.
No, you're all good. No, like part of it, this is the problem, is two ADHDers who keep wanting to interrupt each other constantly.
No, that's just how we converse.
Exactly. It's just full of interruptions. It's all good. It's one of those things I want to make sure I look into a lot more before any decision, like actual decisions get made. Like we're very early days right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Getting the green card is obviously the next hurdle. Before citizenship, you have to have had like a green card for like 5 years or something like that.
Oh wow. Okay.
There's like time frames, like you have to have been in the country with certain access for so long before they'll go, you've kind of earned the right to be here now.
Okay.
And be a citizen. But the thing about citizenship, or the big thing that I'm aware of going in, thanks to YouTubers like Evan Edinger is a fantastic YouTuber, American, now living in the UK. And basically, if you become a US citizen, obviously living here, this wouldn't be something you think about, but you're paying taxes, right? Obviously, you're paying taxes, you're a US citizen. However, if, let's say, I become a citizen and then in 10 years' time I decide, you know what, actually, I'm going to go back home to the UK. Unless I renounce that citizenship, I am still paying US taxes in the UK as well as UK taxes.
Oh.
So I'm doubling up on my taxes because the US basically goes, we've put a bunch of time and money into you, you now owe us
Ew.
for life.
Ew.
So it's pretty gross. And so like, and then, but then it's like, well, what would be the point in getting citizenship if not to be able to travel between both places?
Right.
Right. But then if I live back in the UK, I would have to renounce that right and ability in order to not have to pay the taxes anymore. And even then, they will still try and swindle you for a bunch of taxes.
Wow.
It is not fun, and it's a bit of and so like there are a bunch of other things. Like obviously, when you become a citizen, you get a right to vote, and if you're living in that country, there is an importance in having a voice and going, if I call this home, I want to have a say in that. So there is just a lot of back and forth of like, there are some pros, there are some cons, but yeah, like the tax one's a big one. Like if the fact is, if we have kids here, even on the visas, like they will be US citizens by birthright.
Right.
And so they therefore will also have to have those discussions and they'll be dual citizens because we can apply for UK citizenship for them. But then again, if they decide they want to go back and live in the UK, then they have to decide, do they renounce their US citizenship or do they pay taxes for the rest of their lives to both countries?
Right.
Countries like Italy, interestingly, are really good to Americans.
Okay.
They will subsidize your taxes. So if you're paying US taxes, they remove the amount of US tax you're paying from the Italian tax you pay.
Oh, that's considerate.
So it's like if you're paying more US tax than you would Italian tax, look, you're not paying any local taxes anymore. Which is very nice, which is why Italy's quite appealing for Americans. But it is also why Italy financially as a country is not always doing as well because they're too nice with that money. But that's so like taxes are a big one. Like death and taxes, the only two things you're guaranteed in life, right? And so like there are a bunch of other things. But if on a green card, I have the right to work and live without having to constantly reapply for visas or have an employer if I want, if whatever happens in the future, right? I'm not tied to anything. I could just be here in the country. Doesn't matter. Because eventually I will retire like Matt did.
Right.
So eventually I will leave.
One
Like,
day.
there's a reason he couldn't do it forever. We can't all do it forever. Like, we age, like, we want new voices and new people coming in to do stuff. So eventually that will happen. Who knows when, but it will. And so you want to have that right to be in the country and remain here if this is where I call home. But if I then decide to go, I don't quite know what the rules are of like how long I could move back to the UK and still still have the green card, because that might be part of it. Again, I don't know fully, but it's like if I live in the UK go back and live there for a few years, at some point the green card might just go, well, you're not here, we're going to revoke that. Whereas citizenship, they can't revoke.
Right.
So there's a number of things at play, and partly it's just us and thinking about our future, and like right now, this is technically temporary.
Yeah.
Technically, we don't want it to be, and we want to pursue green cards and go through that route, but right now it's temporary, and so we don't want to be, we're just kind of taking it as it comes, and then once we get green cards and we can be here permanently, providing we can get green cards, and we hope we can, it then means we can sort of think about the long term. Like, is this us? Have we built a life here and friends and family and all of this stuff? Are we now, is this us permanently, and we just kind of see this is it? In which case, if that's how you feel, then citizenship makes sense. Whereas if we're sitting here going, you know what, this is great, but actually at some point we will probably want to go home, then it may not be the best option.
That makes sense.
It's all kind of up in the air. It's all very open. We're not stressed about it. We're just
you've got at least 5 years to think about it.
Exactly, and even then, like I say, the citizenship thing would be after green card, so we have to be here even longer before we have to make that call. Like a lot of people I know that went from green card to citizenship, a lot of them did that because like they got a green card because their partner was a citizen, and so therefore being a citizen makes sense because they're living with their partner here because their family's here, and we've got nothing here other than the friends we've made along the way. Like it would be a big decision for us to go, no, this is now us. Like this branch of the Robinson clan has now decided
Right.
we are here and we are Americans.
Yeah,
That's a
absolutely.
big shift compared to, if one of us was already American and had family. I mean, Steffi technically has some family here, like aunts and uncles in Texas, I think, but like not close family that way.
Yeah.
Like this is like the family unit.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Can you think of anything else that might be like a big misconception that people might have about the visa process or anything about the immigration process that you experienced at all?
sure. I mean, I think part of it is that the immigration, it is and isn't related. Like the immigration process kind of technically doesn't stop once you get the visa.
Really?
Like it's not like officially, oh, you still have a bunch of immigration paperwork to fill in. Obviously, like I say, you've got the renewals to do. But the challenges of moving to this country as an immigrant
Uh-huh.
is actually really hard.
Okay, like what?
So, all sorts of things. I've been here for 2 months and I'm ripping my hair out. I've gotten more grey since being here, that's for sure. Trying to get Social Security,
Oh.
nightmare. Trying to find somewhere to rent, nightmare. Trying to get a car, nightmare. All of these factors that you need to live, getting a bank account, really difficult. Because like, think about it. You move, so I was very, very fortunate. We had friends that we were able to live with.
Right.
And so they were like, we will sign a renter's agreement for you. So that became a proof of address because everything hinges on you having a proof of address.
Right.
Getting a bank card, Social Security, everything, you need a proof of address. If you do not have a friend to rent off of that will write a document for you and sign a document for you, that is really tough.
Yeah.
Because Airbnbs do not count. Because there's no proof of address. You're not getting bills. You're not got a renter's agreement. It is not a proof of address because you're not there permanently. You're a visitor.
Yeah.
And most landlords require proof of address, require bank accounts, require social security numbers in order to let you rent to begin with.
Oh, wow.
Things will change state to state.
Right. For sure.
North Carolina is particularly stringent on a lot of these factors. Like some places you can get a library card.
And
So my friends first moved to Maryland when they first moved to the US, and there you can just get a library card that counts as a proof of address, and they don't check anything. You can just put the Airbnb as your address, and suddenly, wow, now I've got proof of address. Now I can get everything I need here. Like literally, if our friends hadn't let us rent from them, we'd have been absolutely stuffed. We'd have had no chance. Because you have that, you get your address, that then allows you to book a Social Security appointment, which then we had a bunch of issues with USPS delivering it. They delivered it once and it got rejected, or it got sent back to sender, and so we had to get a second one sent. That was partially due to like some of the issues we had with
the mail here is
USPS,
bad.
and because we were renting from a place which our friends were selling, and so it was deemed vacant, and so they're like, well, we can't deliver anything here despite they were renters. It was a whole thing. But like, get Social Security, that then allows you to go and get a bank account.
Right.
But that then takes weeks for the card to arrive in your hand. And while some things you can pay using your account details, other things require you to physically have the card. So you've got to wait. We had to wait a month for my Social Security to arrive. Let alone, I then it was a week to get the appointment, a month for the Social Security to arrive. Then you had to wait 2 weeks for your bank card to arrive.
Oh, wow.
You've also got to build up a credit score because we've got no credit here. So you have to find a credit card that will let you do it with no credit score.
Wow.
So we have like a $500 a month limit on the credit card. It's nothing, but it's like all the risk the bank will take. And you also have the issue again I didn't expect. I have Social Security. It means nothing to so many people because there's nothing behind it.
Yeah.
You think about it, I've got no history. So they go, what's your Social Security number? Here's my number, give it to you. And then they go, oh, I've encountered an error. Like every system has an error because there's no credit score, there's no background, there's nothing associated with this number because it's never been used for anything before.
Right.
Despite the fact I am a 30-year-old man sitting across from them.
Right.
And so that's very confusing to them and their systems, and they don't really know how to handle it.
That's crazy that they would be surprised considering you have an accent.
I know, right? You would think, but then it means you have to submit a bunch of extra paperwork, so a bunch of other visa documents. Again, you have to resubmit more proof of address and other factors and things like that. So like, yeah, trying to get the place where we were renting, because I hadn't had my first bank statement or my first check yet from or the first like payment from my company, because until a US bank was set up, we couldn't transfer my employment from the UK to the US department.
Wow.
And so I had no proof of income. And so for renting, they're like, we need proof of income. Well, I've got my UK stuff. I haven't got anything in the US yet. Because that, like, everything, well, you need a proof of address. Like, well, that's going to take a month of having my bank account. So suddenly, what do you do for, like, where do I live for a month? And you have to Airbnb it more. You have to rent a car for an extra month. And the costs add up so quickly.
That's crazy.
And it's just all of those factors. Like, that's the thing, is like, you get the immigration thing, and then you spend 2 to 3 months just trying to jump through every hoop to just be allowed to live in the country. Like, it's getting into the country and there's living in the country.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
Holy moly.
That's the thing. And so that's all the stuff they do not tell you with the visa process or the immigration. And people just, like, it's that thing of going, great, I've got the visa right now, I just get to move to America. It is not that simple. Like, unless you have friends or other people to do that. Oh yeah, getting driver's licenses. That's a nightmare. Having to do all of that, like, again, despite the fact we've been driving in the UK for like 10 plus years.
Yeah.
I literally today got my driver's license from the DMV, so woo! But oh my gosh, just, yeah, having to relearn all of that, and then you can't buy a car until you have a driver's license. But because my Social Security has no details, you have to pay up front in cash. So you have to have the entire payment up front.
Wow.
For the car.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, just dropped a butt ton on a car, because you have to have it in as a cashier's check, because they will not allow me, because I don't have I didn't have enough Social Security detail, they wouldn't allow me a payment plan of the loan.
That's crazy.
So you have to have your driver's license to do that, and we all know how easy it is to get an appointment with the DMV.
Oh, I have to go to the DMV next week, and I'm dreading it.
Well, we've now got to register the car, and so we have to go back to the DMV. And so my wife and I have both done our tests individually, and now we've got to go back and register the car. Hopefully that's then the last time we have to deal with the DMV for a bit, but it's just one of those things that it feels like another thing that's always there and you always have to deal with, and it sucks. But and so much of it, again, I think for me was so baffling, and this is kind of coming from a place of privilege, is, and I'm aware I just touched my mic, so apologies.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
Is in the UK, so many of these systems are online and automated. Almost all of them.
Yeah.
So, like, applying for a driver's license, booking all the tests and everything, and like doing all of that, it's all online pretty much. You go in person, but appointments are easy to get. There's a dozen places you can do it, and they've always got availability. And renewing your license or doing the car registry, you can do that online. But yeah, no, it's just, everything felt so much simpler in the UK. Yeah. So I was like, oh, that was it. I was like, I'm paying $500 a month in car insurance because we have no US experience.
Right.
And so it just costs so much more. Like, that's the thing. So moving here on a visa, not only is like it much more complex once you get here, but everything just costs more. Like I say, you're paying for Airbnbs and rental cars for the first while. Your car insurance, when you get it, will cost you more. You're paying for a car up front.
Right.
You're paying, we had to pay like 2 or 3 months rent up front because they needed the security of, we don't have a credit score or anything like that. And so it just ends up costing you a lot more. But like with the car insurance, the thing, sorry, this is my ADHD coming out. Right? It's all over the place. But it's like with the car insurance at home, you go on to like a price. There are billions of price comparison sites that are really good, and I have never done insurance any other way. Mm-hmm. Coming here, the comparison sites don't work, or are like they give you a price, but then go, oh, but you've got to call us anyway, and then you actually call them, and then the price is 3 times as much as they've quoted you on the site. And like, so you have to go around and like call all of these places to like figure out going direct, or is there a middleman group that goes like, oh, we'll find you the best deal, and it's through us, but it's like a third party, and it's just like, you eventually get to a point of just going, it's the best deal I've found. Fine, I guess. Like, that's the best I can do because I'm tired of just doing all of this. And so, yeah, it doesn't really end. We're only just starting now, like 2.5, 3 months in, to get to the point of going, right, we've got those things sorted. The main thing we're now waiting on, the main thing we now have to just deal with is like getting furniture and stuff to like furnish a house and do all of that. But all the big things are basically done. And that's just how, and so it like adds an extra 3 months onto everything in complication that people just don't, a lot of people I don't think realize when you get a visa or a green card. It's the same thing of like, and again, if you're moving in with friends or you're moving in with another half, some of those things become easier because they have a card, they have a social security number, they have this, they can back you and do all of that stuff.
They can co-sign a lease.
They can co-sign stuff, whereas when it's literally us two and neither of us have, outside of visas, right to be here and no history here.
Wow.
It just becomes a whole other thing. So
that's wild. I didn't even think about that aspect of it.
Yeah, because that's the thing. Like you guys obviously have Social Security from
from birth,
from forever.
Forever.
And so you've got your entire like, I was going to say digital footprint, but none of it's digital. It's all analog, which is why it's such a pain to do anything. But your entire sort of like profile has been built like over however many years that is, and you go like any credit card you've had, any car accidents, all of that is all tied to that number. And so they can just look when you will go, oh, I need to open a new bank account. Yep, there it is. I need to sign a rent agreement. Yep, I can look it up and I've got all your entire history. We've got nothing. We've got a number and that's all that's there. And so they go, what do we do with this?
Wow.
And the systems aren't built for it. They're not actually built for people who move to the country. Like they're all built based around, this is the system we have for Americans.
Figure it out.
Kinda, yeah. It's because it's like, again, everyone's got every American has Social Security from birth. Every American will therefore be able to drive a car from the age of 14. Every American will be able to get a bank account from whatever age. Like those systems are all built in for people born here and so therefore US citizens. They're not really accounting for the anomalies or have systems really in place for the anomalies. Like they kind of do in the sense of, oh, here's a bunch more paperwork, or, oh, you're now going to have to call them or go in person to now do a thing. It just makes it way more complicated.
Right.
And takes way more time, which again, when you're new to the country, you don't necessarily have a bunch of time to spend doing that. Like I've still been working full time.
Right.
I haven't stopped.
Right.
Like my job carries on. We have to produce a video every single week. So
Right.
it's not like I can take the time off and go, right, I'm going to spend a month sorting my life out.
Right.
And they just, and so like, it just takes a lot longer to get to this.
So then can you think of any other misconceptions or things that people might think of in regards to the process? And if not, what are some last thoughts on the concept or the topic that you feel like leaving mostly Americans are mostly who watch the podcast anyways,
well, exactly.
people with?
Yeah, I don't think there's any other, like, again, the misconceptions.
No crazy, like we covered
We've
most
covered
of
pretty much everything. Like, there's a lot going on. There's so much more that I just don't know about because it's like visas that we just didn't look at, like student visas.
No, yeah,
are a thing that
absolutely.
exist. And like, there's a bunch of stuff you could understand, but it is, the big misconception is just it's not as easy as you might initially think, or as much as the online articles you might read tell you it might be.
It's not.
Never that easy. And just, it's that thing of, you've either got to be very lucky, i.e. the HB, like lottery visas essentially, or you do just have to have someone who's really going to back you to the hill and like fight for you and like support you through that. Like that's the only way this happens, whether that's a spouse or a job or whatever.
No, yeah, absolutely.
That is what is necessary. And not because you say Americans are mostly the ones watching this, so it's not like any of you are necessarily applying for visas here, but it's
more
like
of like I think people really just need to know. Like they need to understand.
It's that thing of if you know someone that's going through the visa process or has just gotten a visa, be nice to them because they're going through a lot, and it's having the real. For those of you who maybe are looking to apply for visas or know people that are, it's being aware of how long it takes and being ready to go for the long haul. It is not a quick and easy process. Sometimes it can be, and it's awesome when it is, but you have to be ready for disappointment and to get through that and to decide and know how much you want it. Like this, because of this job and the colleagues and like the conversation we had, I knew that I wanted this and that this was absolutely the right call for us. But if you're just kind of like, this would be fun, there's so much not fun in the process, and the amount of time it takes, the fun will very quickly dissipate, and you'll have paid all that money, spent all that time for not a lot of reward.
Well, I also think that, like, right now in America, the idea of immigration is a very hot button issue.
Mm-hmm. There's a reason I have not left the country since getting the visa.
Exactly. And I think that having an opinion on current political issues, I personally think requires understanding what those processes look like and
100%.
having an idea of what you're talking about, because you can't really have a true opinion on policy or on administrative decisions if you don't actually understand what those policies and decisions entail and how it impacts people and what these processes actually look like for people. Like, it's very easy to tell somebody, oh, we'll just do it the legal way, but when you don't actually know what that entails.
The legal way is so hard, and this thing, if you don't have a lawyer, you don't have access to a lawyer,
it becomes very expensive, it becomes very inaccessible.
It's almost
exactly
impossible.
And I think that there's a lot of really good conversations to be had about, okay, then what do we do about that? But you need to understand, people need to understand, if people are going to be a part of the conversations of what they of their opinions on modern issues, then they need to be informed on what those modern issues actually look like.
Well, because that's the thing, I think a lot of people don't think, like, again, like in this, I said I'm an immigrant, because I am, but that's not what people think
That's not what people are
I
upset
am
about.
not what people
That's why
think
I thought
of.
you would be so perfect for the episode, because in reality, so many people are going to hear how difficult it was for you, and they're going to be like, "Oh, poor Tom."
Yeah.
But it's because you're the right skin color.
But that's the thing. But this thing, people don't realize, like, again, the amount of the rejections and the time it took for all of these things, in spite of that factor, which is like something that a lot of people, hang their hats on, of like, this is like, oh, you're the right skin color, you'll be fine. It's like, it still took me 3 years to get here, and still took rejection after rejection. It wasn't oh, he's a white British guy, he'll be fine.
Well, it's not only that. Like, I was thinking about it during something that you said, but I didn't want to interrupt you when you were like, oh yeah, when it comes to the in-person part of the interviews, some people, it's very easy. And I got asked 3 questions. And for other people,
100%.
Hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. It's just starting.
Yeah.
And I think that it's important to mention and acknowledge. Like, if we're going to have conversations about how to properly come into the country, we need to properly, like, understand what that means and what that looks like for people in general, from all different backgrounds.
Exactly.
And, like, let's be realistic about how attainable this is. And okay, once we've talked about how attainable this is, then we can talk about right and wrong ways to go about it, and we can talk about how to change things and whether we want to change things and what we would want to change them to. 100%. But it blows my mind when I see people that genuinely don't understand the details and the concepts behind it. They're like, oh, well, there's a legal way. Okay. Like, my dad also went through the legal way. Was it streamlined because America bought the company that his father was working for when he was overseas? Yes, it was. And it still was a problem because he still got stuck over there, and they still had to get senators advocating for it. Like, it's a mess. And I think people, you can have an opinion. But have an opinion with all the information.
100%.
So,
being informed is important on anything, really.
I thought you'd be the perfect person to talk about visa issues, because I think people are willing to listen to you. That's crazy.
I know, right? I appreciate that. I'm glad that you think people listen to me. You should see my comment section.
There's also a social media immigration lawyer that I plan on talking to. She just had a baby.
Yeah, that's fair.
Gotta give her some time to,
she
had a baby about a month ago, but she's only been,
her maternity leave should be up soon, surely.
This is America.
This is America.
Her maternity leave's up. You're so right. Well, thanks so much for hanging out with me today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been fun.
This stuff's important. I think it's important to talk about. We've been talking about some really, like, a few weeks ago, we talked about drug addiction and recovery. Like, I really love the interesting but important episodes. Like, I love them. I feel like I learn a lot, and I feel like there's always important things to take away, even if it just, I'm not even saying anyone has to change their mind about anything. I just think having all the information is a very, very powerful tool in today's society.
Yeah, communication.
And that's it.
Communication is key to
Absolutely.
all things in life, and it's being willing to have the conversation, or at least hear the conversation.
Exactly, is the first step.
You don't have to walk away and agree or have your mind changed, but
you can at least hear somebody out, and that's
to
what
at least
matters.
listen. It's important to at least listen.
I love this. Thank you for bringing me Steffi.
No, of course. Of course. I think she's very excited about this whole thing, so you know.
Good, as she should be. Well, thank you all for hanging out with us today. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you all next week. Bye, my lovelies.